What's up, Infected, and welcome to the Quarantine. This video I'm going to be covering a game coming to Kickstarter by the name of Place in the Sun. Now, if you like what you see in this video, I'll have a link to the Kickstarter up in the corner and down in the description that'll take you directly to their Kickstarter page, and it'll provide way more information than I could possibly cover in this video. Before we get started, I do have to state that everything you see here in this review is a prototype copy of the game, so the artwork and everything is, of course, subject to change. So what is Place in the Sun? Well, thematically, you and up to 3 other races have all recently accomplished or achieved faster than light and essentially space travel. So now you all are fighting over who has supremacy in order to colonize these newly discovered worlds that you've found. Mechanically, the game is a dial-driven card game where all of the 4 different races all play completely different. So let's just go over to the overview. In Place in the Sun, the players are going to choose one of the 4 different races. You have Humanity, is blue. You have Mothership Theta, which is purple. You have the Rhea, I think they're called. They're plant people, which is green. And then you have the Arachnids, I think is how they're pronounced, which are giant space bugs. Then the players are going to choose which star that they would like their planet to orbit, whether it's a red giant, blue giant, yellow sun, white dwarf, or red dwarf, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. Now, once a player has collected their deck, their leader cards, and their planet dial, and then the number of energy that they will be using as their life points, they're going to set their dial to 3, and then now the players are ready to go. Then you're going to draw up to 5 cards. Now you are allowed to mulligan and discard these cards, shuffle them back into your deck, and then draw 5 more. However, of course, you do have to keep the second set of cards that you draw. Then at this point, once you've determined who is going to be the first player, is where the game starts to get very unique. Now, depending on what your dial is on, the number that you show here is the number of cards that you must play during your turn. Now, this is especially devastating for humans because a certain percentage of their deck actually hurts them. So you have to think very hard about which card you would like to play. Now, there's a few different types of cards. Now, for example, this symbol here means it's an action. You could play it, and then it activates, you do what it says, and then it immediately goes to your discard pile. However, the cards like this is considered an orbital. So you have 2 places you can place an orbital. You can put it sideways, and they go outwards of here, and they are defending your homeworld and your moon, which is the other place that you can play this. This would go here, and is going to be defended by your orbital cards. Now, most of the suns that you can orbit have a defense bonus. So this has a defense of 1, so by placing it here, it actually has a defense of 4, and every card on your turn you get to activate if it's still out on your field for free. So every turn I get to double the amount of damage that I do of all of my cards as long as this is active. So if I keep this bad boy right here, I'm going to start doing a lot of damage. Now, another one of the things you can do as one of your plays is you can take one of your leader cards here and flip it over, and then this is just a static bonus that you would have as long as this is your active leader. Now you can discard him and then flip over your next one as, of course, additional play, and then this would be yours, and so on and so forth. When you run out of your deck, you're going to shuffle your discard pile and turn it into your new deck. So you're rewarded for cycling through your cards to get what you need. Now, each player, depending on their starting sun, has so much energy. Now, when your energy drops to 0, you are out of the game and you've been killed. Though, some of the actions you can take can either increase your dial or decrease your dial, usually giving you special abilities, such as being able to discard a card every turn, which could be really good. Or, as you start being able to play more cards as humans, every time you play a card with this symbol, you would just lose energy. So it starts affecting how you're able to play. Not to mention, each race has a special ability that you show down here. The humans, keeping in mind this is an early prototype copy of the game, would be discard 5 cards, and I can either adjust my dial 2 to the left or 2 to the right, which could allow me to potentially be in a position where I can discard some of my bad cards, or just be able to play 5 cards during my round. Then, at the end of your turn, once you've played all of your required number of cards, you will draw back up to 5 cards, and then your turn is over. This is going to continue until all but one player have lost all of their energy, or a total of 8 points of the achievement cards that are available in the middle of the table have been claimed. Now these usually have very specific circumstances, such as have 4 or more orbitals in place, and you're allowed to claim one of these cards per round if you have accomplished it. So if during this turn I had 4 or more orbitals in space, I can claim this, keeping this here to show that I have 3 points. Once you've achieved 8, you also would win the game, granting you your place in the sun. Now, when I was looking over games on Kickstarter for my Kickstart the Week show, which if you haven't looked out, I recommend checking that out, I happened to stumble across Place in the Sun. And it immediately caught my eye because space, and it looked like a card-driven 4X game, which I thought was incredible. However, I found out that wasn't quite the case, but I did speak with the designer. He's a pretty cool guy, and he offered to send me a copy of the game. And I have to say, I love this game. Combining dials with your cards to show what you can play, and then sometimes you get penalties, sometimes you get bonuses depending on your race and depending on what types of cards you're playing, and the fact that all 4 races play totally different. Like, for example, Mothership Theta, they're not a planet, so they're using their power to do damage to other people. But then they're also putting up force fields around all their stuff, which is costing them power, which is hit points to be able to hurt people, and that's really cool. And then you have the bugs, I can't for the life of me, the Arachnids, or I think is what they're called. They are a hive, so as they're playing cards, their dial is just going down. So then you have to play cards that are improving your population so it can go back up, so then you can play more cards to make it go back down. And then you have the plants that are spores, so they kind of work like the arachnid, but they also get to put a ton of things into other people's hands, and then if that help them, so you give me a card and I can play it, and I just get a bunch of energy every turn. But you can then activate all your spores, and they basically explode in my planet, doing a ton of damage. And so they play different, and just all 4 of the races are totally different. And then you humans, they're my favorite one to play. They're probably the hardest, which I'll get to. But the humans, they can be insanely powerful, but then they peter out really fast. If you get the right combination of cards, humans can be a force to be reckoned with. But like 25% of their deck are negative cards. And after you get those really good cards, if they get destroyed or anything, there's not a lot you can do. So you gotta hurry up and try to cycle through your deck so you can get those cards back and then put them back out and then hope you can hold on long enough. And so just the dynamic between all that is awesome. It doesn't really feel like any other card game I've played because there's no cost on the cards, there's no nothing. I mean, except for Mothership Theta, but there's no cost. You just play this many cards a turn. That's it. You want to play more cards? Play some cards that increase that dial. Pretty simple. You want to play less cards because you're humans and you don't want a lot of revolts? Start going down, and especially humans, the different dials are different political scenes. So one is like communism. So it cracked down on everybody, but you only play 1 card because of it. And it's such a cool system. Now, everything's not puppy dogs and rainbows. The game, of course, does have its own flaws. As of right now, the game does have kind of a balancing problem. Now, I do want to mention, of course, this is a Kickstarter prototype, so there's plenty of time for them to fix this in the final product. But, I have to review what I have, so keep that in mind. The game does have a clear balancing problem. It seems like the humans and the Arachne, they feel like they should fight each other in terms of their card capabilities, their damage output, stuff like that. They kind of feel like they should be able to fight each other, but then Mothership Theta and I can't for the life of me remember, the green ones, the plant people, they feel like they should fight each other because the plant people can have some insane defensive abilities. But then Mothership Theta can have some just downright disgusting and dirty damage output. But when you play a big 4-player game, everybody can kind of attack each other. So it kind of feels like Red and, you know, the bugs and humans, they kind of are at a little disadvantage. But, you know, it's a Kickstarter prototype. They have plenty of time to kind of work that through. Now, the human player is interesting because 25% of their deck, if I'm not mistaken, is negative cards. Because, let's face it, humanity likes to kill each other. And that's supposed to be incorporated into the game, where a lot of the time you're going to have a bunch of cards in your hand that are just terrible. So you wind up having to activate your racial ability, maybe getting rid of 1 or 2 really good cards in your hand, but you don't want to play these other bad ones. So then you use your racial ability to be able to discard those 5 cards and get 5 more. So that's kind of cool, but it makes things really complicated a lot of the time, and honestly feels, with the fact that none of the other races have anything like that, it almost feels like the human players are at a big disadvantage. Then another issue that, of course, it's a card game, so it is going to turn some people off that, you know, you kind of are at the mercy of the luck of the cards. You know, if you just do not draw well, you're probably not going to play very well. But from what we've seen, the different races, they all have kind of ways to go, okay, well, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and you get to put all of these into your hand. So it allows you to kind of cycle through your cards and get the cards that you need. But of course, that is still going to turn some people off. And then lastly, more of a minor complaint, the game lacks anything like, for lack of a better term, like a counterspell type thing, where if you're like, I'm going to drop this, then I'm going to do this and this, and there's no way for me to go, nope, and kind of interrupt something you're doing. And I think that would have been really cool to introduce. That way it kind of keeps everybody on edge, because it's supposed to be this big galactic just brawl, you know, cuffs up and just start swinging. And just the ability to be able to go, nope, would have been really neat. Even just a couple cards each race would have made people a little paranoid. I think would have added a lot to the game, but there's not anything like that yet. Overall, yes, I definitely recommend giving Place in the Sun a shot. You know, yes, it's got some balancing problems, it's got some issues, but it's also an early Kickstarter game, so they're gonna probably keep working on it, they're gonna be balancing the game. So if you like space games, you like sci-fi games, you like card games, you like games with asymmetrical powers, and you like games with a lot of conflict and a lot of variability, just simply switching, playing a different race, or even just giving them a different star. The different races play totally different depending on just various factors. Heck, even just what political cards that are out could also affect how you're playing. So there's just so much variability, and there's so much really cool, unique things in this game. One of my favorite card games is Android Netrunner, probably my favorite. Love Android Netrunner because it's fresh and it's not like every other, you know, card game that's out there. And this is definitely that. It's very fresh and it's very unique. I definitely recommend checking it out. Check it out up here and down in the description. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time in the Quarantine.